This is the Zac Anesbury Show.
Welcome. On today's podcast clip, we have our very first repeat guest, Bob Moore. We spoke earlier about, when you were at SCJ, one of the reasons you liked going in was because you started speaking to and hanging around with people who were, in their 20s, 30s, 40s. And obviously the demographics change now a little bit. Do you still have contact with people, I guess, there that you're mentoring or people elsewhere? And has that, do you see value in that? What sort of, for them, I guess, and also for yourself?
I do. I think it's getting less and less over time, which would make sense. But there is, I'll give you a good example. There is a young guy there that I actually, when I first came back from Aaron Bass, he had just come from, he had been in the U.S. military. He was in the Army. He went to West Point, which is their military academy, and he served 5 or 6 years. And we hired him to do market research and consumer insights without him having ever done anything like that. We've hired a bunch of people at SCJ from the military in this market research area, and we just teach them what they need to know. And so he was going from consumer insights to business analytics. So when I came back from the sabbatical leave in 2019, he was just moving into the analytics realm. And I sort of took him under my wing and helped train him on all the things that we did, really got him sort of into Ehrenberg Bass. He was already down that road in pretty good ways, but we did a lot of stuff together when I was there. Like one of the things that we did that was pretty interesting was there was a new product that was brought out in the insecticide category, which was safer for pets and kids and things like that. And, of course, everybody's thinking, oh, we're going to get category rejectors in here, people who don't like insecticides. We're going to expand the category. So we went in and we showed that all the people that were using this stuff, or they were heavy users of the category before this was even introduced, right? It's the kind of stuff that it's what you would have expected if you know how how the laws of growth work, right? But it was very satisfying to go in and say, oh, here's our hypothesis about this. And people are thinking, oh, we're bringing in all these new people. And we're like, no, you're not. And it wasn't our product. It was, another company's product. But it was, being able to, I kind of raised him with that kind of stuff. And so now he and I still talk about stuff. I mean, obviously, SCJ does stuff that's confidential, but occasionally he'll say, oh, I found this really, like one of the things he's doing is a longitudinal study. I had done one in 2015 when I was there, and I looked at 10 years of panel data. So you look at people that are continuously in the panel, and he's doing something like that. And so I said, well, let's make sure that you're answering all the questions, but you're also demonstrating all the laws of growth, right? Something that like 98% of people who use Windex, right, they buy it once a year or less, right? So you can't have a frequency strategy with Windex. Almost everybody barely buys it, right? So he's been able to take, and we sort of taught when he was setting this up. I'm giving him some free consulting where I'm saying, okay, here's some of the things that you want to do to make sure that you're reinforcing. This is how the consumer really works, how categories are really bought, how brands really compete, right? So he has an opportunity, even in an environment where people are maybe not so much accepting of these things anymore, to basically say, hey, this is the way it is, right? This is what we saw in the panel. And so that was fun to help him with that.
Yeah.
I have some other friends that I see occasionally. I'm actually going back to Racine in a week for a friend of mine who's just retired, and he's having a big party. So I'm going back at the worst time of the year. It's going to be like, 20 degrees below 0 Celsius.
Wow.
It's going to be very cold, very cold. I'm not looking forward to that, but I'm going back to go. And so I will see a bunch of those people again. So I am in touch with them, but I would say this one guy is the one that I'm most in touch with in terms of, being able to sort of help him out. I told you I might have a consulting gig coming up in a month or two. That's also a former SEJ guy. He actually had left and gone to Kimberly-Clark. He worked on the Kleenex brand there. And now he's moving to a small entrepreneurial company. And he was like, hey, how do I get, what can you give me some advice on what to do to sort of get these Ehrenberg Bass principles into my organization? So he's calling me and asking me for some help with that. And, one of the things he might do is try to become a sponsor. So, so I'm working with some people like that, but it's been more, it's more catch as catch can rather than, something that I set out to do. It's kind of opportunistic, I guess is probably a better way to say it.
Yeah. So you just touched on the Institute. So, you visited in 2019 and again in 2023. You're, I think, the only external person I'm aware of that's actually somewhat on our, internal communication channels, which is, very, very unique, that's for sure. And when you were in Adelaide last time, I don't know if you remember this, but Rachel Kennedy, our Associate Director of Special Projects, I think it's called, referred to you as being, part of the family. So, very, very honorary thing there. When you visited, what was, I guess, what were you looking to achieve, and did you end up getting some of those key things done, or are you're still working on some of those?
I mean, the first time it was really more back in 2019. It was to become, to get a much more in-depth understanding of laws of growth and sort of how everything worked and how the Institute worked and all that. And having been a former academic, before I was in packaged goods, I kind of did know how the university worked, and none of that stuff surprised me necessarily. But it was really about making those contacts. The second time, it was really more about how do I get set up to do some real research. And I think the one thing that was probably most disappointing to me, we talked a little bit about the Kilts, Nielsen Kilts data. I mean, it's for academics only, right? And I'm not an academic. I don't have an academic affiliation. And there really wasn't anything that was suitable for me at the university. I couldn't get like some kind of honorary title and that would satisfy the Nielsen Kilts people. The only thing that I could have done to get access to the data was to become a PhD student. And so I actually applied. I don't know if you know this or not, but I applied to become a PhD student at the university. And it's kind of a long story, but the bottom line was they weren't willing to give me like a scholarship because I already had a PhD, which I thought was a little, in some ways I thought that was kind of silly because I think that what we were trying to do was allow me to work with the university. And I think, one of the key missions of the university is the creation and dissemination of knowledge.
Yeah.
And that's what I was trying to do. And whether I had a PhD or not was irrelevant, right? It just seems very strange to me that was the reason, and to be honest with you, Zach, I didn't really necessarily want to get another PhD, but I was willing to do it so that I could do the other stuff that I wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
In some ways it let me off the hook, right? But I still don't have access to the data that I really like. And I have some ways of looking at that data, manipulating it, and so on, that I think could add a lot of value to the kinds of stuff that you do at the Institute. And so I feel like there's an opportunity there that's being missed, but there's not much I can do about it. I mean, I guess I could pay tuition, fees, and all that stuff to enter the PhD program, but I guess I don't want it that badly, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm just trying to find, I kind of feel like I'm a very unusual person in the sense that I'm willing to do stuff like this for free.
Mm.
And, I don't really, I don't want to, this is not a job I'm looking for. I just want to be I want to be part of something that's important.
Mhm.
And, I kind of feel like I've been blocked from that a little bit.
Yeah.
And, that's unsatisfying to me. But I mean, I feel like in terms of like everybody at the Institute was like, yeah, like let's get Bob going, and we have some ways, just like I said, I do have another data source. It's some very, very old IRI data,
Mm.
that I'm working with. Like I said, there's a few issues with it. I'm trying to work through, get so that the data is really usable. So I might still be able to do that. Something like the Pepsi-Cola situation in Europe.
Mhm.
I mean, that's not Nielsen-Kills data, right? We should be able to do some things with that. So I think there might be some other things that we can do to, achieve some of the stuff I want to do. But I kind of feel like that I'm a little concerned that I'm never going to get there
Mm.
because these barriers keep coming up, right? And it's not barriers that the Institute's putting up because everyone's been super welcoming. They are very, like to your point, I'm on the internal communications. It's like I'm an honorary member of the Institute in some ways. That's the way I feel.
Absolutely.
And I totally feel like I belong and that I have the right to say I mean, I know my place, right? But if, people, I can say whatever I want to anybody
Mhm.
and it's fine.
Mhm.
And I'm helping find a venue in the US for the executive laws of growth training. So I'm working with Elke on that. So like, I feel like I'm really a part of things and I would like to be a bigger part of things, but there's the university in particular is sort of putting up some barriers for me.
Yeah. Computer sort of says no sort of situation where logical says like this is a great opportunity. Hopefully with the new universities, like maybe the policy will change where they're more willing to, grant access or whatever it happens to be to yeah.
I have the sense that it's not that. I think they were looking for some kind of excuse, to be honest with you,
Okay.
because when I initially applied, they said to Carl, "Oh, he's good. He's in." And then they were like, "When's he coming to Australia?" And Carl's like, "Well, he's not." And they're like, "Well, everybody has to come to Australia." And he's like, "Well, why?" I said, "He's already got a PhD. He's got 30 years of work experience. He
Mm.
doesn't need the kind of supervision someone who's 25 years old
Mhm.
might need,
Mm.
right? Or that support even." So then they couldn't just say, "Oh, okay," and they kind of had to go back, and we had to resubmit, and so it feels like there was something about. I think there might have been something else,
Mm.
and Ken came up with, "Well, he already has a PhD. We're not gonna fund that."
Yeah.
I could have seen them saying, "Well, if he's not going to come and live in Australia, we're not going to fund it because we should be spending our money to improve Australia and Australia." That to me, that's a better excuse to not fund me than the fact I already have a
Yeah.
PhD.
Yes. He might be a better candidate in.
Hey guys, it's Zac Anesbury here with just a couple of quick reminders. If you've enjoyed today's podcast, then make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. There are plenty more interviews to come with some of the world's leading marketing academics and practitioners. You do not want to miss these. In the meantime, if you're looking for another way to connect, then follow me on Twitter at Zac Anesbury. That is ZACANESBURY. For my take on the marketing issues of the day.
That was the Zac Anesbury Show.